you know all the shortcuts. I wouldn't say shortcuts, but you know how to work with it. Your planning is better. Your decision making on what do you like, what is the right method to make your specific wine, where to get it from, when to harvest it. All that little things that is necessary to make a good wine comes with a little bit of experience.
Good morning, Lukas. It's so lovely to meet you here on Zoom.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for this. It's really, thanks for choosing me. It's awesome. Lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, I'm so fascinated about your winery there, because you're in Darling. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and Darling, I know, is in the west coast of South Africa, and you actually have cooler climates than in the Boerland.
It does, because it depends when you talk about Darling, it's a little bit more diverse in a way, but Darling, where we are in the Darling Hills, is definitely the case where you have the effect of the altitude, and you also have the effect of the Atlantic Ocean that is very close. I talk about 9 kilometers as the crow flies to the ocean, which makes it a more moderate temperatured area for South Africa. And also then obviously good for making wine. It's moderate, and that's very important when you make good wine. When the area is good to make wine in now.
Yeah, and the soil that you have there.
The soils are decomposed granites. It's basically like nice deep red soils. The benefit is that it's very deep and it's well structured. So what I always explain to people why it's well structured means is that it allows root development, which is very good, and it maintains moisture. So if you remember, in the past, all the vineyards here was dry land, most of it. Now a lot of them are trellised, but in the past was bush vine and dry land. Now it's trellised, but we have a little bit of supplementary irrigation now. But in your good soils, and even in dry years, you will see the effect. But it's amazing how good the vineyards last. And sometimes when I harvest, I think, goodness, after I've taken it off, did I need to take it off now already, because the vines look so good? But we had the drought. You can see the effect on the vineyards when we had the drought. After 2-3 years of low rainfall, you will see the effect in the vineyards. But otherwise, yeah, we're blessed with the soil. Makes a huge difference.
And do you have? I mean, I don't know much about how close you say you're quite close to the ocean, but do you have also the moisture? Do you have a problem with moisture?
Yeah, it does have a problem. It does cause a problem sometimes for rot, but we control that. We are fortunate that we know when we have those peaks of rot, that we control it. We try to minimize any spraying. Unfortunately, you still have to. Just to give you an indication, we don't use any insecticides. We only use biological control here, which is very important. So no insecticides. It's only herbicides that we need to do to control your oidiums and downy mildew and things like that. So yeah, if you are in a more maritime condition, you asked me about, it's 9 kilometers from the ocean, so it does have an influence on that, yeah, on diseases, yeah.
But this is also what I wanted to ask you about, the way you farm. It's because there's a difference between biological farming and ecological farming and ecologically friendly farming. Is it? Or is it the same thing?
Yeah, you basically get your organic farming, which is a total way of going organic. Biological is to make sure that the implementation of certain, just to give you an indication, for controlling mealybug, for instance, which is probably one of the better known methods that they use, is biological, is by introducing predators. Because every insect has got like a cycle, and that cycle has obviously there's different stages in that cycle. So you introduce different predators in the different stages that will eat that or control that specific stage of that mealybugs development. So you introduce that predators at the certain stages. So what happens is that you've never have to spray anything to control the level of infestation of mealybug. So by doing that, so that is the little kind of thing. So that is what we do. We try to eliminate minimum spray as far as we can, only when we need to. So when you go to organic, then it's a different approach. Then that's a whole different story, which is difficult to start because you don't know what's going to happen. Out of a financial point of view, you can lose your whole crop if you do it wrong. And the other thing is that you've got a lot of farmers. Your neighbors is not biological or organic, and when it happens, then when there's a big disease, your vineyard's just going to go dead. I mean, you're going to lose your whole crop almost. So that is the risk. So you can't take that risk. But as far as we can do is to make sure that we don't have, we control it as much as we can, and that we use stuff that it's not harmful to people, that we spray it at the right times, so that it can break down. And we're lucky in South Africa because we've got the IPWs, we've got Vita, and so much more of this people that controls this whole area. So when you or this industry, so when you have a product that's not good for an environment, not good for people, they will take it off the list and you can't use it anymore.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is very, very well controlled by these institutions or whatever you want to call them now.
But now the reason why I also speak to winemakers on this platform is that I'm fascinated by the link between the science and the art of making wine, and also only when you also talk about the way you farm, there's a very much creative thought into that as well. But do you agree that that winemaking is a form of art?
Yes, I do. I think it's definitely it's a combination. You're 100% right. It's a combination between the chemistry, because you have to understand what you're working with. I mean, it's the same with the painter. You need to know his paint. He needs to know the surface that he works on, what he wants to achieve. Very much so. Interesting is that we talked just before we went on air. Let me put it this way, but art. But I think I've always been a little bit of in that world. I think that's the thing that pulled me towards making wine. The other reason was my mother said you were drinking too much. It's probably a cheaper way of getting good wine. but to be honest, it's definitely it's a personality thing. So it is the chemistry thing. It's the science behind it. But I always say it's for science is 1 + 1 is 2. For winemakers, sometimes 1 + 1 is 11. And for artists, you have to be creative. You have to understand your vineyards. You have to understand your terroir. What you want to achieve, you must understand. So you have to take in that whole thing is art and creativity, and also production. Because when I talk about production, it's more like the factory thing. So you have to combine that in a way. But I think as a personality, I have got a little bit of art in me, I suppose, and a little bit of creativity that makes a good winemaker. And it's a passion. It's very much a passion, and a lot of drinking.
But apart from the good advice that your mom gave you, what was it initially? What was the inspiration to go and study winemaking?
It's actually circumstances that led me to that. I always wanted to go in agriculture, and I met this girl that I had a little bit of tastings with her father beforehand, and I can remember as a boy as well. I always opened the bottles of wine. I was always the skunker, in Afrikaans. What do you call it in English? The skunker, and I always loved it. Whatever. But it was always such I always enjoyed doing that. And I loved the smell of wine, even when I was a little boy. So, I think maybe that. And then also my love for agriculture. And that was always the direction I think that I would have gone into. Wine I just I think my whole direction just flew, and took me into that direction, and a lot of things fell in place for me to study. Suddenly, this thing happened, and okay, let's try this, and eventually I was studying winemaking, and I'm enjoying it. I enjoyed it from the beginning. Like I said, my mother couldn't believe I was actually studying for a change.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, it's things just fell in the right place for me to eventually go into winemaking, and I'm not looking back, and I really enjoy it. Yeah.
But for a young winemaker, when you finished your studies, is it something that is there a process before you really can start making wine, or are you prepared when you leave university and you is it something that you can immediately do, or is there still a lot of experience to be had?
Yeah, definitely you need the experience. I think it's you can't just walk out of university. You've got all the knowledge, or you think you've got all the knowledge. You don't. You've got all the basics. Let me put it this way. So you've got the basics, but you don't have the experience. So you need to after studying that you go out and into the industry and get yourself that 3-4 years of experience. Because if you go into a winery, you must have the confidence in what you're doing and also have a plan. And that some people probably earlier, some people might be a little bit later. But overall, to have that experience, and I mean, my first 2-3 years of making wine, I was fortunate to work for La-Motte under Jacques Borman. Hopefully, he watched this as well. I'll tell him. But it was just awesome. I mean, this guy just gave me the opportunity to develop myself. I can remember my first year was very, very rough. I mean, it was running around, and you don't know where to start or where to stop. And when you look back now, 30 years, almost, 25 years, I'm just too much. 25 years ago. If you look back, it's basically, all the shortcuts. I wouldn't say shortcuts, but you know how to work with it. Your planning is better. Your decision making on what do you like, what is the right method to make your specific wine, where to get it from, when to harvest it. All that little things that is necessary to make a good wine comes with a little bit of experience. So I'm very glad I had that 2-3 years, and then after that I came to Groote Post, and it was a, you jumped into, now you're responsible for the whole thing. That's a lot on a young person sometimes. Again, I mean, a lot of young people will be able to handle it. Some people will take a bit of time before they get there. So that experience that I got, that 3 years of harvesting, have done a little bit overseas in France, and later on I did a little bit of America as well. That all helped me to become where I'm now, where I'm confident in a way. You still learn every day. I mean, every year is a new year. Every year there's something new coming up, but you're much more comfortable in what you do. So you need a little bit of experience with somebody that had the experience or has the experience.
But now also, if you go to different wine estates, or if you start now a new job somewhere, then the climate is different, the soil is different. How quick is it to understand what the vineyard is going to give you?
It takes you a while, because you need to understand the vineyards. Because it depends on how you work. So for me here, the majority of our grapes that comes into the farm is from our own farm. So you know what to work with. After 21 years of being here, I know what that specific block can give you. So I've grown with that block. I understand, because as I get older, the vineyard has got older, and there's a difference in how it delivers its grapes and what it does. Because as the vine gets older, it produces probably less, develops different flavors. It either can become better or it can be going down. So all that things is very important to understand with time. So you need time to understand your vineyard. So you can't just rush into. But if you have the experience, I think with a longer, like 25 years, and you've been working with a lot of grapes from outside, you should be able to walk into a winery with a little bit more confidence and understand. But you will still need maybe a year or two, maybe 3, before you really understand what that specific winery and its grapes is about.
But now, tell me a little bit more about Groote Post. What is the story behind the vineyard or the winery?
It's actually a very rich history. When I came here the first time, the only place that I went to was La-Motte, to have a good time with my friends for a weekend and about that. And I never knew that the rich history of the West Coast. I mean, it's amazing. You've got the history goes back to late 1600s, early 1700s, especially, of where the influence of the Dutch East Indian Company had on this area to supply fresh produce to the Cape and to the passing ships. So that's why you call one of the areas here, one of the wards here, it's called Groene Kloof, because it's called Groene Kloof because of the vegetables and also of the natural growth that was here. And Groene Kloof because of the flowers in this time now, in August, September, October, where you have this beautiful flowering time, veld is beautiful, everything. So Groote Post came through that. So it goes back quite a long time. I'm sitting in an old fort that was built by the Dutch East Indian Company. That's now a cellar. That's amazing. And yeah, I can go on and on with all the history, but I mean, that's where it started. So after that, it went through many hands, I mean, the farm. And then later on, when everything opened up, or let me put it this way, 1972, Peter Pence and his father bought Groote Post. And they later on bought some other farms as well that is neighboring on this of Groote Post. And they bought this area for making dairy or for farming with dairy. Later on, they had round about, I think, just short of 2,000 cows, Holstein Frieslands. Peter Pence was Farm of the Year because of the role that he played in the dairy industry. He was the first person to import Holstein Friesland semen to South Africa, and which is for that he got the Farm of the Year award, and also the Dairy Personality of the Year award.
Wow.
Later on, which is fantastic. So mainly the Pence family was focusing on dairy here, but as things changed and the landscape in South Africa changed, and people were starting talking about vineyards, and this area there was always vineyards here, but the focus was not on that. And suddenly they were realizing that with Groene Kloof, with Sauvignon Blanc from Neil Ellis, and some of the wines from Darling Cellars, that became popular, and the Pence family decided let's venture into the planting some vineyards to sell it, not to put up a cellar. And it was doing so well that first grapes vineyards were planted in 93, 92, and then around about 98, they decided, listen, this quality is good. It works here. Let's take the opportunity and put a cellar and add value to our own product, which is good. And that's where it all started. So 1999, first wine was made. And sorry, I forgot my time. I'm in the 2000s now. So 1999, the first wine was made. 1998, cellar was built, very quick. I think in like 8 months, the whole place was standing here. And then 99, first wine was made. And since then, I must say, I was not the winemaker then, but we never looked back, I would say. Yeah. We're very fortunate in this area. I mean, and then, putting the effort into, you must make the right decision in a way. You can't plant vineyards and hope that the quality will be good. Mm-hmm. The quality was good, and we're still producing that. And we were fortunate because of that, yeah. So
do you still have the original vineyards there?
Yes, we do. It's actually interesting you say that. We're actually starting this year, or since last year, we started replanting, the old vines that was planted in the beginning, some Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. We're starting to replant with Sauvignon Blanc and whatever we want to plant. So we're at that stage now, really, where these vineyards are getting too old.
Mm.
Unfortunately, people, when I'm saying too old, it's just because it's not using the quality anymore. If it was old and it still produced quality and volume, we probably would have kept it. But the quality was not good anymore. So we are replanting there, which is amazing, but you must remember those days when this farm started, it was virgin soil. And everything almost started. There was a few old vineyards that was around here, but most of it that was planted was virgin soil. So basically in 5 to 8 years' time, most of the 100 hectares, 105 hectares that we have at the moment, probably a little bit more with the new plantings, but had to be planted within about 10 years' time. So that's expensive, amazing. And you have to replace that now.
Yeah, but now talking about that is so, because I've been also talking to people about the old vines, the old vine project, that they are preserving these old vineyards, and so this is not something that you would be interested in doing.
No, definitely. I mean, it's not a problem. I mean, I've got no problem with that. I mean, if you have an old vine the old vine project is where they get this really, really old vines that's still producing very good quality. I'm talking about taking out vineyards that got to the stage where it's not going to help them. It's got rolly virus. It's just not producing. So it doesn't even make a good quality. It can't even make a good base wine for bubbly. You're struggling to get it right. So if that specific site or section or block, what you want to call it, still produces good quality, definitely we'll keep it. And if it goes for a few years, then we'll keep it there, definitely. But you need to replace the stuff that's not working anymore. So we don't take out good stuff. It's just the baddies.
Yeah, because this is this is very interesting for me to also, that it's not just you can just I'll keep my vineyards in to make it old vines. There's so much involved in that, and like you say, all these illnesses that the vineyards can get that influence also the grapes and the wine then in the end.
You see, one thing I just want to say, add on to, is that old vines is not the only way of doing it. I mean, young vines is also good. If you must remember, you've got new clones, you've got new ideas for stylistic. Say, for instance, Sauvignon Blanc. There's new clones on the market. There is new way of how people enjoy wine. So you constantly need to change. You need to. I think it's around about. You need to replace 5% of your vineyards every year.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So you're a successful farmer. That's about some people will disagree or whatever, but it's about 5% that you need to replace. I'm talking about an active winery farmer, whatever, that's been making wine for the last couple of 20 or 30 odd years. You need to replace. You need to keep your stuff that's showing very good and still produce. But you need to keep on changing, and it's very important to what is going to happen in the future. Which is the new varietals that people are going to drink? Are you going to, say, for instance, our Old Man's Blend? I mean, by adding a little bit of Cinsault that we don't have, or Grenache. People, that's new buzzword. Is what people are talking about? What is the craze for the future? What is the millennials like? And that is also, even with vineyards, when you talk about. You wanted to have it old. It's lovely because the quality that comes out of it. But you can also get good quality out of young vines for the future, which is maybe also going to become an old wine in 30 years' time. We can't just keep all the old wines and there's no young wines. We must make them old as well.
Yeah. And for the future generation. But you've got quite a large variety of wine, but I see a lot of white wines. Is that because of the conditions that you have there, or is it just by choice?
No, it's conditions. It's conditions. I mean, the conditions, like I said earlier, when you make wine, you're in the area, you know what's working and what is going to be the majority of your area. So definitely for the whites, it's much better suited. So like Sauvignon Blanc, we walked through the vineyards the other day with a consultant to see where we can plant what sites we can use for what varietal. And I mean, one of the he summed it up and said, listen here, all your sites can be used for Sauvignon Blanc. It will do okay. So what I'm saying is, so Sauvignon Blanc, then what you do is when you do have you want to plant Shiraz or a Grenache or Merlot, which is more specific for them, it's not that easy. So when you come to with this replanting, which is actually very, very good, because now we understand what works for Merlot or Shiraz or for the reds, which site is better, so we can plant them there. And make sure that they're on the more your eastern to your western slopes, because all our slopes are south facing, and your eastern and western slopes are the warmer sites. So your focus on your plantings for the reds now and the future will be more on that site, which will work great, because the quality that we get out of them has historically shown very, very good quality for that red. So and what we've done in the past as well, we regrafted some Sauvignon Blanc onto Cabernet Sauvignon, because that Cabernet was not ripening. It was just too cold. It didn't get to the point where you can say, listen, but now it's just going to produce good quality. So we grafted quite a hell of a lot of Sauvignon Blanc onto Cabernet, which worked fantastic, saved us time, and made sense financially. Which is we should have done more as you look back at it now. But So that is nice now. When we can start replanting, I know where to plant the reds. So reds is not going to not work here, but you need to be more site specific. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm glad to see you have Shiraz there in your collection.
I have to. It's one of my. I'm a little bit I like drinking, so I like a lot of wines. But I must say, Shiraz has always been my first red that I actually, in a way, the first time I went overseas to work was in the Rhone, and probably that's where I fell in love with the Shiraz. When the grape variety is such a beautiful varietal. It's
my favorite wine to drink.
It is. And we make a more gentle, a little bit more the violet kind of softer tannin kind of Shiraz. So you won't be able to. It's a bit more difficult to make. You don't get the full bodied, like with a warmer climate kind of Shiraz. You've got more the gentle, fruity, a little bit herbaceous kind of Shiraz.
But now, Lukas, you seem to have all this experience and all this knowledge, but what still is there for you? What wishes do you have for the future, for where you are?
There's so many things. It's not ending. I mean, I think then that I should, if there's always something exciting. So we've created, they allow me to, Nick and Peter, they give me the opportunity to bring out something new and just something interesting. Peter Pence said to me, Lukas, you always have to do something new. And I mean, Peter Pence was is a businessman for many years. And I can remember when I got here, he said, if you don't know what to do, dye your hair pink. Just to make a difference, but I'm not going to do that. I'm a little bit late, but it's. I think when you're still at the stage where you're excited about what's happening on the farm. There's new things like we brought out the sea salter now, which is doing for us so fantastic. It's been received amazingly. There's a lot of new things new markets that you can reach in the future with this. I mean, it makes it exciting. There's some other projects that be going on. So very important, while you're at a place and you can still grow and you don't stagnate, you can't do that. You need to try new things. If it's a mistake, then carry on to to another thing. But as long as I've got that freedom to express my kind of arty with ways, then I feel the more I can do that, the more excited I am, and the more I probably can give to Groote Post.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there still. I mean, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's it's so lovely to be able to, so you get a bit of freedom to experiment and to be creative and to try new things. And I think that's wonderful, that you still, that you have that opportunity on the farm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's important. That's something that you sometimes can be pushed into a certain direction in some places that I don't feel. I mean, obviously you need to do planning. I mean, if it doesn't work, you stop doing it. I mean, but you still have the ability to be creative in what you do, and that's what we do. I mean, that makes me as a winemaker. I don't work in I work in a factory, but I'm a project manager, but I'm a creator as well. That's, I think what we talked about earlier. I think that's the difference. So as long as I get stimulated with that, I'm very happy to create more and make sure that your market changes the whole time. What is the future? I mean, what does the new people want? There's always new drinkers coming onto the market. So you need to balance that out. So for instance, like the sea salter, which is it's got a totally different label to what we've been doing with the Groote Post. And the reaction on that is amazing. Especially, I'll take my son, he's now 19 years old. And that's what they want to be associated with. With 19-year-olds, that's what they're all about, the new things. It might change in the future because they'll always come back. It's like I always said, I'm telling my father's jokes now, and it's you always go back. But when you're younger, you want to experiment with something. You would be excited about it. Yeah. So for me, I would be grateful if I can do something that comes out and creates a new buzz for the next generation and for the older generation, which is for me important, to make sure that you keep on growing and you make sure that you keep people interested with Groote Post.
No, I think you're right. The whole label, I mean, for me, it's always so interesting, the labels and the name. And I think people drink wine in this way as well. They it's about the wine, the quality of the wine. But I think for people who are not really wine connoisseurs, they also like the story and the label and the whole background behind the wine.
No, definitely. I think the label is very important. That's how it's like a flower. You go to flower because it's nice and beautiful. The bee goes there too. So that's very important. But the proof is in the pudding, and the proof is in the product inside the bottle eventually. I mean, if there's no nectar and it's not nice, bee's not going to go back. Yeah. So you can but you need both. You need both. You need to attract people, to be trendy. I won't say trendy, but be relative and make sure that even if your label is different, that it's still, it will attract people to come and. It mustn't be silly, or you get silly labels, which is fantastic. You laugh at that. But is that going to stick with the future? Is that something for the future? I don't know. Classic is always good because wine is always related to this classicness, with the whole classic history of wine. I mean, you're talking about thousands of years of making wine, and the tradition of wine is in the label. But I think now we're changing. I think there's a lot of things where tradition is very important, but you have to move forward. Yeah, and you have to move forward with time and understand people. Times are changing much quicker now than 50 years ago, maybe. I mean, the last 30 years, things have just went, maybe 40 years, just went up. And wine needs to keep up with it. Every industry in the world needs to keep up with it, So you need to be clear how you make your wine, your style of wine. What do people like? What will they? Very interesting is that if you look at all the soda pops that people make, there's always a new one on the market with a new label. Yeah. But wine is not that. Wine is something that you want to grow for the future, to be like a big traditional following that will drink it and recognize it for the future. So that's what I try to do.
I think also with social media, people are more aware. People are more aware of the different types of wine, because everybody's now drinking and showing and sharing on Instagram, for example. So, But
big social media is very important. Yeah, social media is. I'm very bad on that. To be honest, luckily we've got Peter Jr. He's now Nick's son, so he's the guy that you spoke or sent the email to. They know how to work with it. They love it. They love to be on social media. So it's very important. Yeah.
Well, you make the good wine, and they put it on social media.
I'll leave it for them. No problem. I don't think they want me there.
Oh, is it?
Stay out. Make your wine. Go away.
But Lukas, now I have one last question for you. Can you do a shout out for your favorite restaurant or coffee shop in the area?
In our area?
Yeah. Where do you go frequently?
I make such. No, I'm just joking. Now, I must tell you one thing. Okay. Let me think. I must tell you what my best experience in the last couple of years, say the last 18 months, is in Darling is a restaurant called 1910 Forge, Old Forge, which is an amazing place with unbelievable ambiance. You can just go and have a glass of wine, a gin, or a beer, or a whiskey. And they also make fantastic food, and they've got this lovely evenings with you can have like a Portuguese evening or a Greek evening or I don't think you get an American evening because there's only going to be burgers, but you have like a French evening or a Thai evening. Yeah. So it brings a lot of people together, and I must say that it's in for Darling. I think they're doing a fantastic job, and I actually. To be honest, I don't want to, because we only have very few restaurants in Darling, but they all do a good job. But this at the moment is really standing out for me. And then obviously I can't neglect. I don't want to call, but Hilda's Kitchen on the Farm. When people come and visit, they've been with us as long as I've been here, and they make unbelievable food. Really? They are really is worthwhile. While visiting us to go there, or just go before, do a tasting afterwards, to go to Hilda's Kitchen. Debbie is an awesome chef. People always love her food. I still love her food. She's always creative with new things. She also always brings very slight. Sometimes when you grow and you change, you can't change that quick as well. Yeah, that's the other thing. People are used to it. You can't change things too quickly. And she always comes in with this new kind of recipes, and which is great, which is really worthwhile while visiting us,
Mm-hmm. So that's Hilda's Kitchen on the Farm.
Hilda's Kitchen, yeah. I have to bring that in.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's so special. It's really special for me,
Well, Lukas, this was so lovely to talk to you. I'm coming to taste your wine when I come to South Africa.
Yeah, when is that? Hopefully soon.
I hope so. Let's make a wish.
Get on a plane, man. It's easy. It's 12 hours away, 14 hours. Why not?
Exactly. Yeah.
We'll keep a space open for you. I'll ask Nick if we can have a room for you to stay there for the evening, maybe. Yeah, and we have a lucky
that will be great. That will be wonderful. So I can have the whole experience on the farm.
You should. You should, and it would be great for us to have you. And for everybody else that's watching, to come here to Groote Post or South Africa, you want to visit Groote Post, like I said, we've got a lovely restaurant, a lovely area. It's off the beaten track. And I think a lot of foreigners that has been to South Africa want to come again or first-time experience. Groote Post is an amazing experience because of the off the beaten track experience that they will have. We've got game on the farm. We can take people on a game drive if they want to. Just call us up front. And like I said, the restaurant, we've got picnic baskets. You can go for a walk. Yeah, it's amazing. And especially this time of year is August, September, October. It's just a beautiful time in Darling because of the flowers, and everything turns green, and that's beautiful. I love this time of the year the most on the farm.
Wonderful. Yeah, so it's a whole experience when you come to taste wine. You can do all these things. Yeah.
Yeah,
that sounds very interesting. No, it's on my bucket list, darling.
Yeah. Please,
Good.
you're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, Lukas, have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you very much. Yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.